So do you ever have times when a negative thought will come into your head and you're able to just push it out again? Whereas other times the negative thoughts will come in and then they'll keep coming and then they'll whir around and round and round and you just can't stop it. Well, if that sounds like you, then you've come to the right place. So my name is Tricia Maitland and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and coach practicing in Bath, UK and online. And I use the power of hypnotherapy to help my clients reduce their anxiety, improve their sleep and grow their confidence and motivation so that they can create the life they deserve to live. So if you're interested in any of these topics, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell below so that you can be notified when I release a new video every week. Right, so let's begin. Why is it that sometimes we can't stop negative thoughts? So for us to understand this, we need to understand that although we've got one brain, we have two minds. Now, our first mind is our intellectual mind, and that relates to our left prefrontal cortex. And this part of the brain, it's a more recently evolved part of the brain. And when we're operating from here, we're generally getting things right in life. So when we're in here, we're able to be wise, we're able to be positive, we've got more intellectual control. So if a negative thought comes in, we can just push it out again. We can refocus on our positives, our strengths, our goals, what we really want to achieve. We can have that chat with ourselves and go, no, I'm not listening to that thought. I'm focusing on what I'm doing. And we can stay positive and we can stay focused in this part of the brain. So we have this other mind, which is the primitive mind. And just as the name implies, it's primitive. And it's there for our survival. It's where the fight, flight or freeze response lives. Now, the trouble with this part of the brain, although it's there to protect us and keep us alive, it's very primitive. It operates just back like when we were cavemen or cavewomen in those days. If you think about it, on any given day, it could have been life or death. The caveman or cavewoman could have come across a tiger that would want to eat them, or an enemy tribesman that would want to steal their food, or worse, or they could come across a blizzard that would come through and they would have to sort of hide from it to protect themselves. And so what would happen is their stress and cortisol levels would go up. They'd move into that fight or flight mode, which would give them the strength to flee or fight or hide from the stressor. And then when it dissipated, when they avoided the tiger, when they won against the tribesmen, when the blizzard had melted, then they could go back about their day. The trouble is, this primitive mind operates just the same for us in our modern lives. And this is where we come into problems when we're thinking about our negative thoughts. Because what happens is when we have to deal with the modern tigers, if you will, whether that's, what's happening in the world, whether that's, an issue we have at work, whether it's an argument we've had with someone, whether it's fears and worries that we have about things. When we look at those things, our primitive mind, again, it's not a smart part of the brain, it responds just like it is that wild tiger that's going to come and eat them. But we can't avoid it, can we? We can't avoid those things. We can't avoid the bills we have to pay. We can't avoid that person we've had an argument with. We can't avoid what's happening in the world. And so that primitive response for us translates to anger, anxiety, or depression, or a combination of all three. And really a couple of unfortunate parts about this part of the brain, which is really relevant for negative thoughts. One is that it's always negative. It will always look at things from the worst possible perspective because it's there for our survival. The second one is that it's obsessive. It will always keep checking and going back over and over and over, trying to avoid that danger. And this is where it's relevant for our negative thinking. Because what happens is when we're spending more time in our primitive mind rather than our intellectual mind, where we're going to come up with solutions and be positive and be resilient, in the primitive mind, where negative thoughts will come in. And I liken it a bit to like driving a car. So if you imagine who's in the driver's seat, is it the intellectual mind? Is it the primitive mind? Now, the more anxious we are, the more stressed we are, the more the primitive mind's in the driver's seat. And it's having all those negative thoughts and obsessive thoughts. The intellectual mind might be in the back seat, which I don't know if you can relate to this, but the intellectual mind's in the back seat going, no, don't think that, it's all going to be fine. Why are you doing that? Look, don't worry, it's been all right before. But the primitive mind can't hear any of that. And the more it's in the driver's seat, the more it's in control. And it's not smart, it's not an intellect, it's always negative, it's obsessive. And that's when the thoughts keep whirring round and round and round inside your head and you can't stop it. So what are we going to do about this? Right, so the first thing is to step back from, thinking you have to fix something in yourself, or you're broken, or there's something wrong with you, the first step is that we have to reduce the stress and anxiety. Now, I have a video that I'm going to link to that gives you 9 top tips to reduce anxiety. I'd really recommend having a watch of that, because it does have quite a number of tips that can really help you. But if I was to pick 3, my 3 top tips for getting back some control and getting that primitive mind sort of relinquishing that driver's seat would be looking at your sleep would be my first thing. Have a look at your sleep, and often people are not sleeping well and they're feeling anxious and the negative thoughts kick off. My second tip would be listening to a relaxation track every night, which again, I have one and I will put in below so you can access that. Without fail, my clients who listen to that every night feel much better than the clients, and get better than the clients who don't. I listen to one every night and it makes a massive difference to me. And the third one would be to actually have a think. Sometimes our negative thoughts, it's when we feel that we're not in control. So if there's one thing, if you can think one thing that's on your mind, that if you think, if I did that thing, I know I would feel better. And what's really interesting is if you can gain control back, even if it's in a small way, even if it's something you've put off, like emailing or calling someone, if it's, something on your to-do list, even if it's like putting the washing on, whatever it is, and break it down into the smallest piece, it doesn't matter. The important point is that you're gaining control back. And when you start to gain control back, then you start to feel better, and the negative thoughts can kind of lose their power and get a bit quieter. So if you found this useful, I'd really love it if you could, click like below and share with anyone who you think could really help them to get a grasp on, why perhaps the negative thoughts are whirring around, and also what they can do about it. And otherwise, please subscribe to my channel. I'd love to see you in the next video, and I really, really hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.